Are you guys ready? I don't know if you are. Why don't I first welcome you to the channel where we talk about all things painting and decorating, the paint people, of course. Today's topic, I gotta say, it's a little controversial. The team here, we kind of believe it needs to be addressed because we read the comments, we hear the murmurings. So without further ado, let's talk about why using gray in interior design is actually kind of a horrible choice. Gray has been immensely popular for several years now in interior design, maybe for the last decade and a half, if I can remember properly. But we kind of believe, and I'm sure a lot of you also believe, that it's time to move on from gray. Gray kind of sucks, you know? And we have assembled 5 reasons as to why it sucks, especially as a paint color. And I'm sure some of you have way more than 5 reasons, but let's start with these. Number 1, gray is kind of depressing. It's a bit of a bummer. It's often associated with sadness and prison. You don't go to a jail and see sunshine yellow all over the place, right? The thing about gray is it's devoid of color. It's grayscale. It doesn't have any vibrancy to it. And really, people, who wants that in their home? Not us, not me, at least not on a major grand scale. Color theory is a thing. There are certain color hues that do different things to our brains, also depending on your location and your culture. But gray is almost universally just bland, just nothing. That doesn't really do a whole lot for my creativity, really. Number 2, gray lacks personality. The thing about it is it's a neutral color, and neutrals on their own are meant to be very plain and just kind of in the background. Not a ton of nuance, really. But when we're talking about gray in its purest form, I guess you could say, there's pretty much no opportunity for nuance. You can't really have anything that's overly warm or overly green or overly blue, because in that case, it ceases to be gray, and now it's just a soft or a muted color. I think the only gray thing that has personality is the Tesla Cybertruck, which my wife is never going to let me buy. Gray just doesn't seem to add anything to a room. Doesn't give you any excitement or interest or intrigue. It's just there. Doesn't even reflect as much light as an off-white would. That's at least useful. But gray, just sort of mid-tone. It's very mid, as the youngins say these days. Very middle of the pack.
No cap.
Doesn't inspire anything. Number 3, gray is overused. This is one of the biggest problems that a lot of people have with gray nowadays. It's been so overused that it's become painfully boring to see, especially for someone that works in this business and you see gray all the time. Everyone's using it. It's just time to move on to something different, I think. Because when you're making design choices based on what's popular and what other people are using, I feel it loses a lot of its essence, because at that point you're not expressing your own personal likes and wants. You're just sort of following the pack a little bit. Part of the problem, of course, is more people use gray, then more stores will sell gray things, and that just sort of becomes the norm. So I get that, but yeah, gray was doomed to fail from the beginning, in my opinion. Number 4, gray, surprisingly difficult to pair with other colors. Now you may be thinking, this is kind of a strange one, but believe it or not, gray, for a color that doesn't have very much color at all, it can sometimes clash with other colors because of its very, very subtle undertones. Undertones that you may not even see yourself. Sometimes I have trouble seeing them on their own. It's only until you start comparing them with other colors that it really becomes prominent. And if you're not someone that likes testing your colors, which you should, you might have run into a ton of problems in the past where maybe you thought you picked the perfect gray. Wow, that's exciting. And then you put it on your walls and you paint your hallways only to realize, oh man, it's a bit kind of purpley at this time of day, which I don't like. At least if you're picking a color, a green, you know that green is gonna be green. It can be challenging to find the right shade of gray to match the other colors in your space, especially on your walls. It's really, really tough. And oftentimes, totally not worth it. Number 5, gray is not timeless. Even though it's neutral and passive, gray as a paint color and as the main part of a color scheme, it was trendy. Let's be honest. We all liked it. We all used it. Maybe we didn't all like it, but trends come and go. And now that gray is starting to sort of fall out of favor, it might be back in 10, 15 years. So what I always say is if you can stick out the next decade with your gray walls, maybe it'll be cool by the time you want to repaint it again. Who knows? But that's the main issue with gray. I feel like we overdid it. I feel like every house I went to had white kitchens, gray walls, gray area rugs, gray hardwood. Like everything was just gray. And you might have a nice first impression when you look at it and be like, oh yeah, this is modern. This is what modern design is, right? But then experiencing it day to day, seeing the same thing from house to house to house to house, it just really feels like I don't know, 1984 vibes. Like very like Big Brother is watching you painting your whole house gray for some reason. Now, if you're on board with the anti-gray movement and you're looking for some interesting alternatives to gray painting your home, consider these. How about some color, first of all? I love jewel tones, personally, like emerald green, sapphire blue, amethyst purple, can really add a pop of color and interest to any room. And you can even get jewel tones that are a little shaded and dramatic and moody, kind of like a dark gray would do, but with color. It's awesome. But if you're not ready to cover your house in ruby reds, I get ya, I still enjoy accent walls. So consider creating a bold accent wall with a bright or a deep color, like one of these jewel tones I was mentioning earlier. It's a much better alternative for a lot of people than just painting the whole room, because if you do want to change it up in the near future, you're only committed to having to paint one wall rather than all four. So it gives you a lot more flexibility in that respect. But of course, you can't always go mega bold as well. So if you still want something passive, I tend to favor warm neutrals in general. Gray is the sad neutral. Warm neutrals are happy, like beiges and taupes, ivories. They can really help create a warm and inviting space. Now, of course, these colors are also trendy, so there is a risk that they could fall out of favor as well, but at least they have some life to them. They're not the same color as concrete. It's the difference between a concrete bowl and a woven basket. There you go. Wallpaper. You can always use wallpaper. Gone are the days of just flowers on your wallpaper. This is a great way to add texture and patterns and interest to any room you use it in. You can use it on all the walls as well, or again, in accent wall fashion. Still totally doable and viable. You can also go with a wallpaper that's a little more subtle. You don't need to go super crazy with it. And then of course, if we're not talking about walls, you can focus on the furnishings and the decor through the use of natural elements. I guess you could go with natural gray stone, but if we're trying to move away from the gray, then you got your plant life, wood fibers, wood. That can add warmth and texture and just cozy vibes to your home. I hope these alternatives really inspire you to get creative with your interior design choices, y'all. Because gray is no longer okay. Don't forget to subscribe if you've made it this far, because, you know, 6 videos a week, hello. And also you can further support us by becoming a member for basically the price of a cup of cheap coffee every month. And also we have some more gray drama in this video right over here. Look at that thumbnail. Ooh.